Today is the best day of the year, ladies and gentlemen. You can trade in your Dynasty leagues again, and Dynasty season has begun. And so it's time to start trading for Dynasty players, and we're going to give you some trade targets today that you should be going after in your Dynasty leagues. If you haven't already seen, tonight we have a Dynasty kickoff live stream for 2026. And trust me when I say this, you're going to want to be there. We have a ton of huge announcements, tons of new stuff for you guys that you're going to love. Plus, we're going to be doing some giveaways. We're going to be hanging out. It should be a national holiday. This should be a national holiday, but we're making it our own holiday, and you should be there tonight on the live stream. I do want to do a quick exercise as we get into guys you should be trading for in Dynasty. I want to look at our last buys video and just kind of look at the results of the guys we told you to buy and how much their value according to their ADP has actually gone up since we did that video. And so when you're looking at the results of our last buys video, there are three guys that have kind of maintained their value and either gone up a little bit or down a little bit. Barky, Ladd McConkey, and Cam Scadaboo are all within 5% of their value that we gave them in the buys video in October, on October 30th. And so, Scadaboo was a long-term play, so that makes sense. Barky, I think the mistake we made was we didn't anticipate Sean Tucker taking as many red zone carries as he has, and so Barky's value has actually gone down by a couple percentage points, but it's really just maintained. And Ladd McConkey, kind of the same thing. He's just maintained his value, not really gone up like we said. I thought he was going to go up for a minute, and then he kind of has leveled back out. Now, the other three guys in that video have gone up in value big time, and so we want to talk about those guys. Chris Olave, since we did that video, has gone up 10% in his value in Dynasty. Joe Burrow has gone up 14% in value since that video, and Jameson Williams has gone up 22% since that video. And so in our last buys video, at least, not always this way. A lot of times we have guys we miss on like big time. There were no big misses on this last one. We had three guys that maintained and three guys that have gone up a lot. So we're going to try to do that again and replicate that same type of value increase with the guys we're going to give you on today's Dynasty video. And I'm going to start with Justin Jefferson. I think this is the biggest name in Dynasty Fantasy Football that you will be able to buy at a discount. Not all of these guys are buy lows, okay? Some of them are buys at price. Justin Jefferson, I would probably categorize as a buy low. You've seen Justin Jefferson go in the first round of Dynasty startup drafts pretty consistently for the last 4 or 5 years, really since he's been drafted in the NFL and has established himself as, again, the best wide receiver in the NFL. What I'm seeing now is Justin Jefferson go at the earliest, in the early second round, occasionally in the mid-second round. And again, we're going to be doing a lot more Dynasty startups here in the next month, which you can get in on if you join the site, of course. And we're going to see really where his value settles. But I know there's definitely going to be a discount on Justin Jefferson, and I'm not sure that I can argue against that because looking at his performance this year, 11.7 fantasy points per game is good for 33rd in the NFL. He was a wide receiver 3 in fantasy points per game, after never being outside of the top 9 in fantasy points per game and being top 5 each of the last 4 years. He was 33rd in fantasy points per game. And, we've already talked about why this probably isn't going to be an actual thing on our panic video that we did a couple weeks ago. But, of course, Justin Jefferson, 8th in targets this year, 7th in target share, 11th in air yards, 10th in air yard share. And so you're seeing the opportunity there. He's actually 8th in red zone targets, despite only having 2 touchdowns on the year. We've highlighted his catchable target rate as one of the culprits for why his production has taken such a severe dip. 71st in the NFL in catchable target rate. And really, again, with Justin Jefferson, this take for me is like, okay, if he's actually going to go in the mid-second of startups, I think that's too big a discount for me to buy. I'm going to buy him no matter what the quarterback situation is next year. I think you're talking early second or late first he's still going. I think you do have to have a discussion, at least short term for next year, about the quarterback situation in Minnesota. And the speculation, of course, is will J.J. McCarthy, Max Brosmer, and Carson Wentz, essentially that trio, proved that even the best wide receiver in the NFL is not completely QB-proof. Will J.J. McCarthy be the starter there next year? And there's a lot of speculation. This is his own whole separate topic. And I'm just going to say this. He could be. He very well could be. They invested a lot in him. I think they've shown flashes of being excited about him. I think they've shown a lot more flashes of being not very confident in him. But I do think it's possible he starts there next year. And if he does start, honestly, if you're very convinced he starts in the late first, early second, I'm not sure I probably would buy Justin Jefferson. And I think a lot of you guys are going to go to your league mates and say, okay, hey, what's the price on Justin Jefferson? And then for them, it hasn't changed. They're smart. That's fine. This is going to be league dependent for sure. And again, not every league is the same. Know your league more than you know any specific trade target advice you get from Nathan and I. But in my eyes, when I'm looking at Justin Jefferson's dynasty value, any of these, Drake London and Tet McMillan are right behind Justin Jefferson right now. I would make that swap. I would still take Justin Jefferson over those guys. I think there's an argument to take Justin Jefferson still over CeeDee Lamb, who's also had more of a disappointing year this year. And so, they're the same age as well. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb with the better quarterback situation, you might end up giving the nod to CD there. But from a pivot standpoint, you're probably looking at somebody like Drake London, I think is a very good target. When you're talking about down tiering from somebody to Justin Jefferson, somehow Malik Neighbors is still well above Justin Jefferson. I get that Malik Neighbors was productive when he was healthy this year, but he really wasn't ever healthy, and also is coming off of a season-ending injury, and that makes it a little bit more risky. So you can down tier from Malik Neighbors to Justin Jefferson if you can do that. I would like to do that. I would say if you could down tier from like Amon-Ra to Justin Jefferson plus, depending on what the plus is, I'm totally comfortable doing that. And then, of course, up tiering. I mean, Emeka Ibuka's value is still hanging out way too high right now. If you can add anything to Ibuka, Nico Collins, George Pickens, or Garrett Wilson to get Justin Jefferson, I think I'm comfortable taking those guys, adding a piece, and up tiering to Justin Jefferson as well. And again, it's going to be league dependent. Not going to get these done in all leagues, but in some leagues, you're going to be able to take some of these ideas and get somewhere with them. I think Justin Jefferson is somebody that I'm going to bet on the talent no matter what. I think this is the outlier year for Justin Jefferson. I know that from a route running perspective, from an analytics perspective, when you're talking about removing QB, he's still Justin Jefferson. So for me, it's a no-brainer buy. I think Justin Jefferson's somebody that you go target right now in your Dynasty Fantasy Football leagues while the negative attention is still on him, and I think his value is going to go up gradually in the offseason anyways, and I think next year it's almost a certainty that he will outproduce what he did this year. I don't think we'll ever see this year from Justin Jefferson again.
I mean, you saw those touchdowns go way down specifically. Actually, he's going to get close to 1,000 yards this season again, even though it's on the lower end, and he might not eclipse 1,000 yards because he needs like 53, I think, to get there. 2 touchdowns compared to 7, 10, 8, 5, and 10 the last 5 years, which is pretty wild. Pay attention to the political speak in Minnesota this offseason. Hear what they say about J.J. McCarthy and see what they do in free agency / making a trade for another quarterback, whether it's Tua, who was just benched in Miami, whether it's Mac Jones, who I think a lot of teams would be very interested to trade from San Francisco. Maybe they go get Daniel Jones at the Cold Stone, extend him. Maybe they go get washed up Geno if they believe in a guy like that. We really don't know, but that'll be something that's going to be very interesting to track. Kyler Murray, who I didn't mention as well, who's probably not going to be a Cardinal next season. There are a lot of interesting prospects out there who I think easily could take the job away from J.J. McCarthy, though it's no guarantee. Pay attention to what KOC in that front office says. Next guy that we've got here is Quinshon Judkins, and let me just highlight Judkins, not Junkins, Salvetri.
Hey,
it's Quinshon Judkins.
Sal just won the Flock League. We
Congrats on winning the Flock League.
We probably can't talk any crap.
Congrats on winning the Flock League.
It is funny, though. It is funny.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
I bet that drives you nuts. I bet that's like nails on a chalkboard.
It does. It is like nails on a chalkboard. Yeah. You can sound congested when you say Judkins, like it's a hard last name to
Judkins.
Yeah, it sounds like congested, like you sound congested when you say congested. But with Judkins, he had one of the grossest injuries that you're going to see all season. Really, really sucks for him. After what was a pretty impressive outing in one of the worst offenses in the NFL. I'm not going to spend a ton of time again on how this all started. Let's just fast forward from all the offseason stuff to now, where since week 3, when he really got a majority of the workload, 16, 21, 13, 3, 26, 4, 10, 5, 16, 15, 9, 4, 10 points. And that's a pretty good run. A lot of up and down in terms of volume because, again, you had a lot of games where they were down by quite a bit because they're a terrible team. You had some games where he had 25 carries, 20-plus carries. You had some games where he had less than 10. The receiving upside was kind of all over the place, but at least there was some receiving capability there. I think on the season, he ended up with 26 receptions for 171 yards per catch, 6.5. Again, nothing special, no touchdowns in the air. But as a true runner, I mean, Judkins pretty much looked exactly like he did in college, and that was a very good, very smart runner between the tackles who's physical, who can turn the corner on anyone, who can burn anyone in the open field. Every Judkins truther should get a pat on the back at this point because Avery and I were not Judkins truthers heading into the season. The only reason he ended up being a screaming buy for us was because we knew that he was going to sign a contract and not go back to college. It was never because we actually thought that he was ultra talented. We were big Henderson truthers over Judkins in the offseason before all this stuff happened. And I'll tell you what, man, even post-injury, Judkins has shown enough to me where you're going to see a lot of wholesale change in Cleveland. We don't really know if Shedeur Sanders is going to be the quarterback there, if they're going to go draft someone, they do have an early pick, or if they're going to stick with Sanders. Regardless, this offense has looked better with Sanders as a quarterback. So worst case scenario, let's say that Sanders is starting next year. Like, it really is not that bad of a situation for Judkins to be in. You're really just left with the question, like, from a talent perspective, we don't have really any more questions with Judkins. The question is now, what do we do and how do we adjust now that he's had a pretty devastating injury to end the season? My answer is, again, he's on the buys video. We're going to buy him. This is a injury that, again, you don't want to see anybody suffer from. But of all the guys that you'd want to suffer from a type of injury like this, you'd want it to be a 22-year-old running back.
Not only that, I think the most important point to make here, I don't know how much you know about this, is there's no ligament damage.
Yeah.
It's the best case scenario injury for his leg.
It literally, him and Scadaboo, like, I mean, they got unlucky because of the injuries, but it's like they won the lottery with the types of injuries that they got. As gruesome and as bad as they looked,
they were bad.
They were actually not that
bones.
Not that brutal.
Trust me, as somebody who has broken their leg, a bone is better than ligament. It really is. And I think, the main thing here is people expect him to be back for week 1 next year and be fine. Like, because it's a bone. Bones heal very well. And so that's, I think, the biggest point that a lot of casual Dynasty players might miss. A lot of plugged-in Dynasty players, like some of you, might know that and might be holding him, or your league mates might be holding him. But I think that's probably the most important thing for him, the buy case.
Yeah, so in terms of timing, and it optically looking like really bad timing, optically looking like a really bad injury, a lot of people, again, will kind of overlook the fact that he's a 22-year-old running back going into the second year of his rookie deal in a situation that just hit rock bottom this season and can only get better. And oh, by the way, he is going to be expected to be ready to come back for potentially training camp, definitely week 1, barring any crazy setbacks in the offseason. People will catch on to what his timetable is in the coming months, hence why he's a buy right now. We're not going to have him probably listed as a buy in 3 or 4 months because people are going to have a much better idea on what his status is going to be there. There's always a chance that we could be wrong about this. When we've been wrong about timing, it is, I think, like 9 times out of 10, 90% of the time, it's ligament stuff where we expect it to be better. We've told that it's going to be better, it's going to be okay, and ends up being worse. That was always the risk with Rashee Rice. That was always the risk with Brandon Ayuk. It worked with Rice. It did not work with Ayuk at all because he didn't play it all this season.
Yeah.
But again, the fact that there's no ligament damage for both of these guys is case enough, good enough for us to go ahead and just target him now. So as far as trade moves are concerned with Quinshon Judkins, like, who are the guys that we would move? Let's start with up tiering. Like, I would pay up a little bit from where Quinshon is priced right now. He's obviously fallen a decent amount since this injury. Again, it was at the end of the season, so he's not going to be as heavily penalized. But I would comfortably up tier from a Kyron Williams plus like a second to get Quinshon Judkins.
I would too.
That was not feasible 3 weeks ago. Was not feasible. That was not possible. No one would have even thought about it. Now it's actually going to be like a consideration for a lot of people. We're going to talk about Saquon Barkley in this video. I would pay something on top of Saquon to go ahead and get Quinshon Judkins. Yes. Breece Hall, spoiler. Again, I'm spoiling all these players. We're going to mention him. I would pay a little bit of a premium on top of Breece to go get Quinshon. RJ Harvey as well. RJ Harvey has been a riser. I believe in the talent and the longevity / like volume maintainability of Quinshon Judkins and what he offers in Cleveland's offense as opposed to Harvey. Again, I could eat my words with that, but I do trust Quinshon a little more as a true runner than I do RJ Harvey. When we're looking at down tiers, if you want to down tier from Henderson to Quinshon, now's your time. Now is your absolute freaking time. There are really, really great things to say about Travion Henderson. I'm sure we'll talk about him plenty this offseason and kind of what to do with him kind of being, taking a massive step up the second half of the year. But I really don't see that much of a difference between both of these guys. So I think we're going to be playing that market move a lot, I think, throughout both of these guys' careers. As whoever's ranked a lot higher, we might just go down to the other guy.
Absolutely.
And right now Henderson has a significant leg up over Quinshon.
That's funny.
Yeah, we'll say pun intended because I'm punning like that.
Nathan did on purpose.
And as far as pivots are concerned with Quinshon, I think I would pivot from Bucky to Quinshon. I think you have just as many questions with Bucky long term.
I would.
In Tampa as you do with Quinshon, and then CJ Stroud has been a riser recently. If you're talking cross positional pivots, Stroud, a wide receiver, a tight end here, Tyler Warren to Quinshon. You could not do that a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully that gives you a good number of ideas of those types of moves.
And again, it is Dynasty Fantasy Football season. We're going to tell you to buy Tet McMillan, but again, all of these buys are going to be team specific, and now there is literally not a better time to come and join because it is the beginning of Dynasty season. You can take full advantage of everything we have for you over on the site. Plus, we can start your offseason by giving you a comprehensive team breakdown in this form of a team blueprint where we tell you this is what your specific team is with your specific league mates. These are the moves that you should make, and this is what your long-term goal with this Dynasty team should be. And so if you'd like Nathan and I to take a look at your team, give you a team blueprint for it, and also you get access to everything on the site. And I'm using the old graphics here and the old, spiel because we're not announcing everything you actually get with the membership until tonight, but trust me, you're going to want to be there. And so flockfantasy.com/domain. Again, you're going to get not only the team review from Nathan and I, but you're going to get everything that we talk about tonight in the stream. You're going to have literally, it is your one-stop shop. You do not have to pay for another Dynasty subscription. You get everything you need to dominate your leagues. Plus you're going to get personalized advice from Nathan and I. And so again, flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain when you sign up and do the annual Mother Flocker 2 to unlock the free team review from Nathan and I, and come join the best Dynasty community on the planet. Tet McMillan is our next buy, and this one's tougher, and this is my, Nathan put Tet McMillan on the list, and I said, my response to that was, well, Tet McMillan, actually, his price is pretty high, like, he's still the wide receiver 9, and Nate's response was, he's at the top of a big tier, and I agree with that, because I'm not sure you put him in the Drake London, Justin Jefferson tier,
Nope.
And so when you're talking about where he should actually be ranked, and you're looking at the wide receivers around him, you're talking about him being in a tier with Rashee Rice. Emeka Ibuka is still the wide receiver 11. That's a whole other discussion that we probably need to have. Nico Collins, George Pickens, Garrett Wilson, Ladd McConkey. So he's kind of at the top of that tier. And for us, I think he's at the top of that tier for everybody, but specifically, like, this may not be one where you're just pivoting. And I wouldn't necessarily, again, I probably wouldn't necessarily categorize this as a buy low. Like, this is probably not a buy low at all.
This is a buy at
It's price. A buy at price.
Buy at pricey price.
And I think, it's worth pointing out that Tet McMillan is going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Like, he's there. I don't think there's anybody else on a Carolina Panthers situation where we were kind of, in a sense, we were high on that situation for him just because of the history that Dave Canales has had with, quarterbacks and wide receivers both being productive. Now, he wasn't like, a wide receiver 1. He's the wide receiver 15, though, on the year. Wide receiver 15 as a rookie. Mm-hmm. In that offense. He in his last 5 games, he's had 5 touchdowns, and, you've seen him put together games of 33, 11, 11. Now, again, we haven't really seen a ton of, consistent ceiling from Tet McMillan, and I think that's a little bit something to, think about. I would say concerning. But the other thing is, he's been targeted 116 times this year. I think that could go up. He only has 66 catches on the year. I think that could go up. He might break 1,000 yards. I think that could go up. And the 7 touchdowns I don't expect to go down because he's that type of player. He's always been that type of player, being an X receiver. But I think let's look at his advanced analytics here. Again, this is not a buy low, but this is somebody I will buy at price, and I'll give you some example trades that I would make. 13th in targets this year, while being 14th in target share. 9th in air yards. He's 5th in deep target share, which is an interesting one in terms of his utilization. 14th in red zone targets. And looking at his efficiency, it all checks out. Yards per route run, he's 27th, so that could be better. But again, I think a lot of that is because he hasn't been targeted. And yet, I think part of the issue is, again, 13th in targets in the NFL. With that level of yards per route run, I think a lot of that is just the fact that they could have thrown the ball more. And I think, eventually they might. Bryce Young is probably going to be the quarterback there in the future. It's going to be largely dependent on that. So in terms of trades for Tet McMillan, I think there's a case to be. I honestly don't see a ton of down tiers here that I would do from London. I'm honestly open to down tiering to Tet from any of these guys up top. The problem is, I think a lot of these guys have showcased their ceiling. There's more pivots here. It's more like if you can either pivot or add a little bit or some to Rashee Rice, Emeka Ibuka, Nico Collins, George Pickens, Garrett Wilson, Ladd McConkey. Those are the 6. And just put them on the screen however you want to. Either pivot if you can or see what you have to add to get to Tet McMillan. Those are my trade ideas for Tet McMillan.
Yeah, and I think this is something that, we have to look closely to in, what is it, December 30th? Mm-hmm. Heading into the offseason, before free agency opens up in March, before the new league year happens, what happens in that little window, aside from rookie picks gaining value? What happens in that little window in terms of market value with all different types of players, whether they move up or they move down. Basically, everybody in the Dynasty community starts looking at efficiency metrics. They start looking at what you just read off. They start looking at the really, really good from Tet and eventually the really, really bad from Ibuka. Your sell window on Ibuka is going to close if it hasn't already.
It's probably. I think it already has.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would be. That's my number one move for people. If Ibuka's a top 12 wide receiver in anybody's Dynasty rankings, I will sell him at top 12 wide receiver prices. I still love him, but
and that's kind of the point with Tet. Like, hey, do I see a window next year where Tet actually ends up underwhelming like BTJ because his target volume was an elite level this year and his touchdowns were really high? That's absolutely always going to be a possibility. This isn't. I guarantee you that Tet McMillan is going to pop off and be a top 6 wide receiver in Dynasty next season. This is we know the Dynasty market well enough to know what's going to happen to Tet in the next 3 months. And what his price is going to be in the next 3 months is not quite going to be what it is now. Not to mention, you're probably, depending on what happens this week when they play Tampa, I mean, they might end up in the playoffs, and then you have a whole playoff game with Tet, and you've seen what happens to the value of players
in the playoffs,
depending on what they do in the playoffs.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
So, I mean, fingers crossed, hoping that Carolina makes it to the postseason. If that happens and Tet does anything nice, anything decent, that's already a value win, already. So, I think it's not necessarily a super clear and obvious one. Like some of these that we're going to talk about next, like Saquon Barkley, I think are
obvious,
pretty clear. I think they're pretty obvious. And with Saquon, like this one to me is just, it's straightforward because it was straightforward last year what his price was. You didn't really want to invest in Saquon. We always had the caveat unless you're a heavy contender. But even then, I think the only time we were ever recommending Saquon as a real legit trade target for somebody was if they were an elite value team.
Sure.
And they could like raise the production upside of their starting lineup in their flex spots and like flex Saquon. And this year, I mean, there's no question about it. His efficiency has gone down. His touchdowns have gone way down. The receiving capability has been the same. It hasn't been anything super special, but I mean, 2,000 rushing yards last year, 1,100 this year. His attempts, again, he's played 16 games this year. I don't even know if they'll play next week because they clinched the division and they're not going to get the 1 seed. But 345 carries in 2024 to 280 attempts this season. There are a couple factors here. Number one, tush push is going to be banned officially. Philadelphia has used that and exhausted that play to a point where everyone's sick of it. And it's kind of just dumb at this point. I mean, there's that one game where they did the tush push like 4 times until they got a first down.
And that was the game where everybody's like, okay, it's gonna get banned.
Yeah,
like,
it's gonna get banned. It's gonna get banned.
They definitely overstayed their welcome with the tush push, and it's very obvious at this point. Number
2, the offensive line has struggled from a good number of injuries this season, where especially in the run game, it has not quite been what it has been in years past. And I understand most teams in the NFL suffer from injuries, and that's just the reality. That's just the case. But I really like the price of Saquon Barkley a lot more than I have in the past. And we have seen these mocks. We have seen a couple of real money startup drafts that have happened in the middle of the season where Saquon has gone from being a 2-3 turn guy to a 5th round guy, 4th or 5th rounds draft pick, generally 5th. And that's just way more palatable for a short-term productive asset where, again, long-term, it's not going to be a massive, 2-year value. And if you were to hold him for that whole time, if you're a contender, you're getting him now at a discount before he increases in what value to start the season again in 2026. Even if you're a reload right now and you want to play the market with Saquon Barkley, this is the time to do it. The offseason is always the time to buy CMC as well, right? This is the same case that we've made for CMC in years past. Last year when he was coming off of this past offseason when he was coming off of the year where he didn't play that much, kind of the same thing with Saquon this year. It's like, yeah, we know exactly what his situation is going to look like again. We know that his touches went way down. We know that his touchdowns went way down, but I don't think anybody who watched Saquon in Philly quite a bit this season was like, oh yeah, Saquon took a step back in terms of talent and ability. No. And like he hasn't lost a step. To me, is very resemblant of Derrick Henry, but he's got a couple years on Derrick Henry as well. And not to mention, he just got a massive extension this past offseason after they won the Super Bowl as well. So he is very insulated. He's one of the more insulated, like productive veteran assets that you're going to have in Dynasty right now. I think it's an easy go ahead. The closer you get to the start of 2026, the more he's going to climb back up in price. It's clockwork every single year. As far as pivots go for Saquon, I would comfortably pivot from Tucker Kraft to Saquon right now, according to Market and Keep Trade Cut right now. They are value equivalent. That's insane to me.
That's not right.
Harold Fannin, I know, has been a huge riser. Again, these are cross-positional pivots. Harold Fannin is correct.
There's no way, dude. There's no way.
Harold Fannin is very popular right now, especially in tight end premium.
I'm telling you right now, I personally don't think those are realistic. If you can get those done, holy freaking crap.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yep. RJ Harvey and Josh Jacobs are a couple other running backs there that I would pivot to.
Those are possible.
I really, really like Cam Scatterbu, but I would pivot from Scatterbu to Saquon Barkley. I trust Saquon in his situation, and honestly, he's just as insulated as Scatterbu is in the next 2 to 3 seasons. With down tiers, I mean, if you want a down tier from CMC to Saquon plus a lot, you could look into that if you wanted to. It would have to be a lot. CMC is going to be an interesting case again this year because it's another 25-point per game season.
I'd probably
down tier from Bucky to Saquon plus if you want to do that.
Yep.
And then a couple of up tiers. I would up tier from Chase Brown to Saquon. I don't think their long-term outlooks are any different. I would up tier from Javonte Williams to Saquon. I like Javonte Williams. I like Saquon more. There are a lot of veteran running backs down in this range that are not that far down from Saquon at this point, who I just don't really trust, and I don't know what their situations are going to be. Travis Etienne, another guy who we don't know where he's going to be, Jacksonville or somewhere else next year. Saquon's just a better player. So I think every single one of those moves is something that I would look into, and again, dependent on CMC and how astronomical his price is.
All right, I want to talk next about a guy that we're simply playing the market on because he's a free agent. You see us, present a lot of these to you every year. The tendency with players in Dynasty that are free agents that have the ability to either re-sign or go to another team, they tend to go up in value. And the reason for that is anytime there's positive press around a player in Dynasty, they do tend to get an inherent Dynasty value increase. And so if they get a big contract, even with a bad team like the Jets, they've got more insulation. And so now their perceived value is higher in the eyes of most Dynasty players. If they go to another team, there are lots of unknowns about how this particular player, specifically Breece Hall, in a bad situation the first couple of years of his career, is going to perform now that he's not in that situation anymore. And that unknown creates a lot of excitement and also, again, makes their Dynasty value go up. And so typically, regardless of what happens with free agents, you almost always see them go up in value. And so we're always going to be saying, hey, if you've got big name guys that are going to be free agents, we're going to be investing in them. And I think very rarely do you actually see a free agent with the level of Breece Hall at the running back position, because most of the time, you see this with Jonathan Taylor. You see this with Kyron Williams. You see this with James Cook. A lot of the top 12 of the running backs, we saw this with Saquon, obviously. Saquon was a notable high-end running back who switched teams in free agency. But all the rest of the guys up here are guys that have re-signed with their original team, and that's a big thing. This is he's not Saquon, obviously, but in terms of, if Breece Hall were to go to a contending situation, similar to how Saquon Barkley went from a terrible situation to the Eagles, you would see a lot of the same excitement around Breece Hall in on a smaller scale, but in the sense that his value would go way up in Dynasty. I think absolute worst case scenario, he's a safe buy because he's going to maintain being a free agent. But I think there is a better chance than not that he's actually going to go up in value this offseason.
Also, this running back class past Jeremiah Love for the most part is cheeks. These are the years where experienced veteran running backs get the bag in the offseason.
And we're going to talk about that.
We saw this a couple of years ago in the Jonathan Brooks year where Saquon got paid, Swift got paid, a ton of running backs got paid.
Exactly. And so I think this year, again, the stars are kind of aligning for Breece Hall to take a big value jump in Dynasty. I think he's a good investment. I know it's not a sexy buy. I know that he's not been the most productive guy, but I think this one's pretty easy for me. And so I'm looking at his market value. His market value I have no problem with. Again, it might not be a buy low. It might just be a buy at price, because I'm probably not paying Bucky, Quinshon, or Christian McCaffrey for Breece Hall. I think there's easily a world where he's valued above Bucky Irving this offseason, but I'm probably not doing that. If I'm going to do that, I like down tiering from Travion Henderson to Breece Hall plus. I think that's a good move. I like down tiering from Bucky Irving to Breece Hall if you can get anything on top. A lot of people might look at that as a pivot, and in that case, you're probably not going to be able to make that move. So those are two guys I'd like to down tier to Breece Hall, if at all possible, in your league. Some pivot options, he's valued right next to Saquon. I probably would still take Saquon over him. Kyron, I honestly, these guys are valued very similarly, and I think they will be all offseason, but I'm comfortable making the pivot to Breece because I think Breece eventually, gets him by a pretty good number in his value. I think that Breece Hall will be clearly valued over Kyren once he signs with a new team.
People are freaking about Corum too.
And then there's also that. RJ Harvey, I would be more than happy to pivot to Breece Hall. But then you probably any lower than this get into the up tier range. And so who are guys you can up tier to Breece Hall? Nathan mentioned Chase Brown. I like Chase Brown as an up tier target this year as well. So I like going to Chase Brown Saquon or Breece Hall with Chase Brown. You could go from somebody like Travis Etienne up tier to a Breece Hall and see how much that's going to cost you as well, which I really like. And you could be as far down as like a Kyle Manung guy who's the running back 22 right now market value. Woody Marks running back 24 right now market value, and see what other good asset you'd have to add to get to Breece Hall. But I think a lot of those guys, again, not guys I super believe in long term, whereas I know Breece is going to have a very prominent role on whatever team he's on next year, and so I'd make that move. Again, more of a market play here, but free agents, you typically tend to see them go up in dynasty value. He'll end up being a good buy, and if he gains value, that's good for your dynasty team.
So I know I'm crossing over video content tactics here, but I had to do this because, again, this is going to be a down tier move that I recommend for the player that I have as a buy in this video. Player one is almost 27 years old. He's 26. He'll be 27 in the next month or two. Okay. 120 targets, 71 receptions, 1,100 yards, and 6 touchdowns in 15 games. One extra game for player number 2, 16 games, 156 targets. That's compared to, again, 120, 100 receptions compared to that 70 for 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Is player one, you said, had 71 receptions?
Yep.
Is it Nico?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Nico Collins. Player number 2 is Chris Olave. Chris Olave also is 25. So
that's crazy.
Chris Olave, who was expected to retire via a lot of people this offseason. I say that tongue-in-cheek /
because he was never going
to. We had him listed as a big buy this offseason, and he's now wide receiver 6. Mr. Concussion, who was guaranteed to retire, guaranteed to turn down $30 million a year that he has now earned this season, is now going to make $30 million a year and get an extension in March with the Saints, where Shuck is freaking slinging it right now and is going to be the starting quarterback next year. And again, regardless of your opinion on Shuck and whether you think he's good or bad, a long-term option, I don't really know.
He may not, even if he doesn't.
Even if he doesn't, I honestly don't really care. Chris Olave, this is officially Chris Olave's coming out party. This is what everybody's been waiting for. This is what we've seen consistent flashes in the pan from him for his first 3 years of his career, to a point where he has been able to pretty consistently maintain his value within like a two round range. And you finally have a mid-wide receiver one season with 156 targets, alpha level production, alpha level red zone usage, everything that you wanted from him, you finally got. And what's his value doing? I mean, it's gone up, but it's almost plateaued. It's right there by Marv and Odunze and Lab McConkey. I can't get behind Lab McConkey at this point. I'm sorry. This Chargers offense, I mean, talk about hard to predict and hard to expect who's going to produce any given week. Not to mention Hampton was out for half the season, and now he's back and he's producing again and looking really good. Like, it's looking like the Greg Roman offense that we thought it was going to be to start the season. Like, there are plenty of guys in this range that I would pivot from. Ladd, I would pivot to Olave. Rome, I would pivot to Olave. And Marv, I would think about pivoting to Olave because he's actually producing right now. And in terms of short and long-term outlooks, again, short-term outlook, looking better for Olave because he's actually producing. Long-term outlook, he's 25 years old. Okay. Cool. 25 years old. That's great. A couple of guys, again, that I mentioned that I would down tier to Olave to. Nico Collins, I would down tier to Chris Olave plus. Fun fact, Rashee Rice and Chris Olave are the same age. They're both 25 and a half. Actually, Rashee Rice is a couple months older than him. Rashee Rice is multiple rounds, 2 full rounds, according to market ADP, higher than Chris Olave. And their production has been very, very comparable this season. Actually, in terms of points per game, if you look at both of these guys, Rashee Rice, 18 points per game, Chris Olave, 16.8, almost 17. So again, like you do have that leg up with Rashee Rice. And again, I'm not saying I prefer in a vacuum. I'm not saying I prefer Chris Olave over Rashee Rice, but if you can down tier and get a significant plus on top, I mean, I would at least look into that.
I think you can get any plus on top. Like, yeah. I'm not really looking to get something crazy on top of Rashee Rice for Chris Olave. Like, Chris Olave is producing at the level of Rashee Rice at a more consistent level, in the sense that he's scoring more touchdowns. He's not getting 4, or his yards per target isn't like 3, right? And so like it's just a much different type of player. And I think in terms of
he's a bit
floor,
more versatile than Rashid too.
Yeah, well, he's just a better receiver, like, to be honest.
Yeah,
He always has been. I mean, we've looked at the reception perception data on Chris Olave the last 3 years has been really good.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, this is one where it's like, I think we have given Chris Olave as a buy quite a bit in the last 18 months, especially. Like,
yeah, and I'm not done doing it, honestly, because, again, from now until the new league year, you've pretty much got a 3-month window, maybe shorter, when people are like, oh, he's going to sign a fat extension. He's going to be one of the more insulated foundational wide receivers in Dynasty Fantasy Football. And that goes a long way for a lot of people, especially who are looking to contend next year. They'll pay the price for a Chris Olave when they saw that jump this season and look into the efficiency metrics on what Shuck was able to provide for him towards the end of the season when he really exploded and raised his ceiling even more as well.
Not to mention, even if Shuck, if you put him as an average or below average NFL quarterback, look at what Chris Olave has done in that situation this year. That's going to translate. The same situation I don't think is going to get
worse,
like that much worse.
Kellen Moore deserves some credit as well. He loves dating back to his time as an OC everywhere, loves throwing the ball.
He does like throwing the ball.
And that does, regardless of your opinion on him as a coach, because there are plenty of questions there.
I was going to say, giving Kellen Moore credit.
For fantasy, I'm giving him credit.
All right.
Because
he's just like,
oh yeah, he'll throw the ball.
Okay.
So
known Kellen Moore hater over here. I'm just going to group these last 3 together, honestly. They're kind of all the same thing. Tyler Algier is another free agent market play. But it's one that's like a little bit more under the radar than like a Breece Hall in terms of playing, the market.
It's popular among content creators. I've noticed a lot of people in the space like him, and we totally agree.
I was going to say I would totally agree with anybody who's saying to buy Tyler Algier. That's a good take. Running back 33 market value. He's going around guys like David Montgomery, Chuba Hubbard, Bashal Tutin, Blake Corum, Jalen Warren, Trey Benson, Devin Neal, Dylan Simpson. I'm just going to be honest with you. I would just trade most of those guys for Algier.
Yeah,
there's zero risk in trading those
guys that are curious upside shots, which I'm in total support of as well, like Tutin and like Charbonnet. Those guys haven't even shown anything over the course of the entire season in terms of elite, like not elite, but like high level of production. Algier's the only one that's done it. And the only reason he got replaced is because Bijan Robinson was available. Like, this dude had over 1,000 rushing yards as a rookie, and he was one of the biggest rookie risers in that class. Expect someone to pay him a decent, a decent bag. Look around the league, guys. I mean, look at what Ramondre Stevenson got paid. You're probably going to see around that or a little tick above what Ramondre got paid a couple years back from New England's, and he'll be a starting back for probably a couple of seasons.
And in my opinion, like, when you're looking at him compared to the other running backs in the rookie class this year, like, I would take Jeremiah Love over him if I'm an NFL franchise, but I would probably take Algier over all of the rest of the rookie running back class this year.
I would take Algier over probably B tier beyond.
Who are those guys?
Haynes and Emmett Johnson are the guys that are on the verge. It depends on what the draft capital is. I'd probably take Algier, depending on where he goes.
I think even guys like Price,
But like, can you imagine him going to Minnesota? Because again, there are a ton of teams here in the league that need running backs, and they should have gone last year, and the ones that didn't are kind of screwed this season unless they pay someone.
Exactly. And so I think Algier is a good market play from a free agent standpoint. Another one is Kenneth Walker. And again, I'm not going to give you a ton of specific trades because I like a lot of these guys. Between Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker could be a good buy because he either is going to re-sign. If he re-signs, I think this is like the rare exception where if he re-signs, he might not see a value increase because everybody knows what he's going to be on the Seahawks, and it's just not good enough. It's just not. But if he goes somewhere else, then you're going to see a big value bump for him, and that's why I'm okay buying him. You're also going to see a big value bump for Zach Charbonnet, who would then be the Seahawks starting back, who, again, in my opinion, Charbonnet is interesting. I think he's better than most of the backs in this class, but there's also times where he just doesn't look very good as a runner. He doesn't. Right. And so I still think they would roll with him though next year. And so I think both these guys are good market plays. I think if Algier, Walker, and Charbonnet are 3 guys that, again, could be the product of a,
pretty much in that order. We feel the best about those running backs in that order: Algier, Walker, Charbonnet.
I would say that's true as well. It could be, a combination of a weak running back class and also they're all free agents. And so do us a huge favor. If you enjoy this video, kicking off Dynasty season, drop a like, make sure you subscribe. In case you're new here, here's what we're going to do for you this offseason. We're probably going to release our videos. We'll do 2 videos a week. We might have 3 for you next week because, it's a little bit busy right now. 2 videos a week normally, though. We try to make the highest quality videos instead of trying to pump out videos every day. And so, typically we're going to drop those on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're also going to have live streams probably on Tuesdays and Thursdays this year as well. And so make sure you keep an eye out. If you're subscribed, make sure you turn those notifications on. You can get our content as soon as it comes out. And again, if you want to get a team review from Nathan and I to kick off the Dynasty season, it's a good thing to get you started so that you're making all of the correct moves for this Dynasty offseason, you can check out the link in the pinned comment. We love you guys. We appreciate you, and we'll see you with another video this week.